being flexible and able to add in new technology to pare back different areas, to make changes to your standard operating models in every sense of the business. All that is important, and cloud is one way to get more prepared, more ready to change things and not be tied into a rigid infrastructure based on what you've seen in the past and where you've come in terms of the operations and strategy today.
Welcome to TBR Talks, decoding strategies and ecosystems of the globe's top tech firms, where we talk business model disruption in the broad technology ecosystem, from BCG to Wipro, AT&T to Verizon, and Intel to NVIDIA. We'll be answering some of the key intelligence questions we've heard from executives and business unit leaders among the leading IT and telecom vendors and services firms. I'm Principal Analyst Patrick Heffernan, and today we'll go from AWS to SAP with Allan Krans, Principal Analyst for TBR's Cloud and Software Practice. Allan, when you think about the cloud and the software ecosystem, what are some of the things that are happening now that you think are going to continue to grow as a trend or going to be most influential over the space, over the ecosystem of cloud and software?
Yeah, I think in terms of developments that are important now, first it's getting the technical capability to support some of the new AI-based workloads. That's a big deal. It's showing up a lot in terms of the hyperscalers' investments to just have the capacity with the new chipsets, the new computing environments to, see where this is all going. So I think that's an important first step. In tandem, though, development amongst the end users, the enterprises, in terms of how to structure, guide, control, plan out how these new capabilities are going to be used within their organizations. It's, with cloud computing overall, that we've arrived at a state where most organizations have a center of excellence within their organization, stakeholders across multiple different groups, because it impacts a lot of different areas within organizations. It's not just IT, and there's nuance, whether it's internal HR, whether it's sales and marketing, production. All those things have different implications, and so having a broad group to participate and make the best decisions, because it's not just one decision, it's hundreds in terms of how cloud is being used. And it's the same thing with AI and GenAI. It's not one use case and workload, it's a number of different ones. So there's a nuance that needs to be captured, but consistency across the entire organization.
So that's really intriguing, because for years, looking at cloud from the services perspective, but also from the outside, I've heard the argument for cloud from a security perspective. I've heard the arguments for cloud from an innovation perspective. I've heard the arguments for cloud from the CFO's perspective, like we're gonna, shift this in the budget, make it cheaper, or whatever. But those ways of selling cloud to different people within the enterprise are all very different. Is there any kind of unifying theory of why cloud is the right thing for an enterprise, or is it the nuance you were just talking about with every single different person within an enterprise looks at the value of cloud differently?
Yeah, I think the universal thing is the easier access to innovation, especially, if you rewound 18 months, all this talk around GenAI would be a foreign concept for us. So I think and it was reinforced with COVID as well, that you don't always know what the environment, what the market is going to bring in the next 6, 12, 18 months. So being flexible and able to add in new technology to pare back different areas, to make changes to your standard operating models in every sense of the business, all that is important, and cloud is one way to get more prepared, more ready to change things and not be tied into a rigid infrastructure based on what you've seen in the past and where you've come in terms of the operations and the strategy today. So I think that's the unifying thing that's become more clear. Cost, it's the OpEx model does have advantages, but when you add that up over 3 or 5 years, it's not always less expensive.
Right.
So most organizations have come to accept that as a trade-off for the flexibility that can be provided with cloud.
Yeah, and we certainly hear some of that blowback in terms of the cost over the long term. The innovation thing makes me wonder, though, are there certain companies within the cloud ecosystem, cloud and software, that play well with that innovation, that are the leading innovators when it comes to not necessarily the technology behind cloud, but how cloud actually gets applied within the enterprise?
Yeah, I think a couple vendors, Microsoft has always been ecosystem driven, so there's a lot of participation. AWS, hasn't always been a partner-led organization, but just due to the strength of their presence within accounts, draws in a lot of partnerships. There are definitely a lot of eager companies on the services, software, enterprise side to come in and participate and do those joint solutions. So they've built up quite a partner ecosystem. I think for some vendors, they continue to be a little bit more difficult to work with. The SAPs and Oracles, just because of the types of applications,
Yeah.
those projects are challenging. So you're never done with a perfect ecosystem around those types of solutions, and it continues to change. So I think there's more required to be an active partner, active ecosystem enabler for those types of solutions.
Yeah.
Never done.
Never done that's a great business model or a business environment for cloud and software and services consulting. Like, everybody's happy with that. So one last question. You've been doing this more than 10 years now. Is there a certain question you've never been able to answer with respect to cloud? Like something that you wish you knew about the way that the cloud vendors operate, the way that the cloud vendors make their money, the way that the cloud vendors develop their strategy, the way that anything to do with the cloud companies, the vendors themselves, or maybe part of their ecosystem, or maybe part of the buyer mentality that when you think about 10 years of looking at this, you're like, I just wish I knew this.
Yeah, I think the limits of where cloud is the best fit for organizations. Very few companies can rely on it as a sole delivery method. And that question of how far will it go, what's going to come back in terms of workloads that are best suited to an on-prem environment, that whole issue around cloud repatriation continues to come up. I think it happens anecdotally, but it makes sense that there will be workloads that on-prem is just better.
Right.
And the legacy ones are the easy ones to point to now. Many have been around for decades. I don't know what the limits of the lifespan are in terms of when it makes sense to either transition, shut those down, refactor those into a modern delivery method. It's stuck around so far. So yeah, some of the limits around where cloud is not the best fit, I think, is still a little bit undetermined, and it varies from customer to customer. So
yeah, and I think you touched on one of the big fears that we have as analysts, which is not knowing when the anecdotal has actually become a trend that we're just missing because we're dismissing it as just anecdotal. So
yeah,
excellent. Thanks, Allan.
Thanks.
Next month, I'll be speaking with Allan Krans again, talking about key intelligence questions we'll be getting over this coming month. Next week, I'll be speaking about management consulting with Kelly Lashiska. Don't forget to send us your key intelligence questions on business strategy, ecosystems, and management through the form in the show notes below. Visit tbri.com to learn how we help tech companies, large and small, answer these questions with the research, data, and analysis my guests bring to this conversation every week. Once again, I'm your host, Patrick Heffernan, Principal Analyst at TBR. Thanks for joining us, and see you again next week.